So this is where I find myself in the back of a police car at nearly 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm supposed to be fast asleep in my bed at my dormitory at my boarding school 3 miles down the road, and I start questioning my decision-making paradigm. Did your school have a story? You know what I mean? I kind of feel like every school, almost every year, has that story about those kids that got up to shenanigans, or how those kids got expelled, or that time that thing happened. Because, well, once upon a time, that story involved me. And it's a good one, and it just popped into my brain. I figured I would tell you the story. Basically, I went to boarding school. My boarding school was pretty big. It was like 120 acres. It's like Hogwarts, but just less magic. And part of that freedom that came with boarding school is that you could get up to shenanigans. Now, this shenanigan, though, was somewhat forced upon us. So the sixth formers, think seniors, discovered that they could get the lower fifth, think sophomores, to go down the village for them under the threat of violence, to get them kebabs or burgers from this legendary place. I don't know if you know this, but the best doner kebabs and best burgers ever made in the history of the world were made by Abdul at the Cranley Village Kebab Van, which was on the opposite side of the village from where our school was. So the sixth formers would come in, and the very first time they did it was go down and get us burgers or we'll beat you up. And we're like, cool. The first time we went, it was great. We were all in camo and we're diving over walls and we cut down. But the thing is, after a few months of this being a nearly nightly experience, it became somewhat sort of rote. We even had a rota because the little capitalists that we are, we realized that we could charge a surcharge. So 50p for a burger, £1 for a doner kebab. I think it was 150 if it was a large, right? So we could go down and you could maybe make 10 quid each. And we'd have money to spend in the tuck shop the next day. So this particular night, it fell to me and Paul. Paul was from Kenya. And we were like, okay, we'll go down. So we take this big order. We get a bunch of orders from the sixth formers. We get a bunch of orders from our year. And by this point, we just walk down the village. Sometimes you'd walk past our teachers. They wouldn't even look at you. They're just not looking for you at that time of night. It's like 11:30 at night or something like that. So we break out of the school and we walk down to the village and we get down there, and Abdul's pretty used to us turning up now with these big orders. And this is a particularly cold night, so he lets us sit in the front of the van, these two 15-year-old boys, and we're just trying to heat ourselves up in front of the heater. It's cold in England. And I don't know, I guess it was a Friday night, but these four guys, early 20s, turned up. They'd been in the pub, clearly, and they were just being leery. They were just causing trouble. They were just being dicks, basically. And I guess it was taking a bit too long because we had put in an order for like 25 things, that they start harassing Abdul. Then they start really harassing him, and they start grabbing stuff out of his van. Then one of them tries talking to us, and he says how he's got a gun. And I'm like, he didn't have a gun. This is England. He barely had a freaking water pistol if he had anything. But they start just causing trouble, to the point that Abdul then takes his, I want to say knife, but I'm going to say sword, because the thing he used to cut the kebab with was the size of Excalibur. He pulls this bloody sword, he bursts out the van, he chases these four guys down the road while he's screaming. Me and Paul are just sitting inside the van going, bloody hell, what is going on? Well, Abdul's pissed. So he's wandering back, and he sort of puts his like sword to the side, and he gets his little cell phone out and goes beep, beep, beep. And he hands me the phone. He's dialed 999. It's how you call the police. And so he's just handed the phone to this 15-year-old kid. And I'm like, hi, it's the Cranley Kebab Van. We just got robbed. There were four guys. We're just opposite the post office. Well, let's give it to the British police. Barely 2 minutes later, it's a little car comes zooming up with his lights and sirens going, stops, gets us a bit of a briefing from us. We're like, yeah, these four guys, we're giving them descriptions. Oh, the police car turns up, and the guy goes, all right, gives the description. This one tears off. And that's when he's like, all right, boys, come with me. Come sit in the back of the car. It's time now, have a bit of a chat. So we give him the proper, we boil down what's going on, who we are, what's happened. And then we're kind of like, all right, so look, you need to do us a favor. You need to, you to let us go. You need to just let us go. But at this moment, the radio's got a... Okay. All right, guys, look, we think I've identified, we think we found the guys that you were identifying. We need you to identify these criminals. And, so this is where I find myself in the back of a police car at nearly 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm supposed to be fast asleep in my bed at my dormitory at my boarding school 3 miles down the road, and I start questioning my decision-making paradigm. But Paul and I are like, okay, all right, well, how are we going to do this? We can't, what, are we going to go to the police station, identify these guys? No. What we're going to do is going to drive by, all right, and you guys just, you know, they won't be able to see you, and we just need you to look out the window and identify them. And we're like, oh, great, thanks a lot. So we're like this in the police car, just like, we're just peeking over the window, and they sort of do a bit of a drive-by, and we look, and we see them being quizzed by other police officers, and we're like, yeah, that's them, they're dicks. So at this point, it's getting late, and we have no idea how much trouble we're in. So eventually the police take our statements. We're like, please, again, just don't tell the school. All right. Everything cool? Great. Have a nice night. So we make our way back to the school. At this point, it must be nearly 2:33 in the morning. And, we get back, and of course, you know, there's people waiting for us. You know, there's sixth formers. They're going, you better have a bloody good reason where our kebabs are. Why don't you have our kebabs? And we're like, well, okay. And so we sit down and we tell the story over like 20 minutes, and we get to the end and go, all right, yeah, that's a pretty good reason. The story is not over. Because, of course, like, from this point on, we're just waiting the next day for the sword of Damocles. It's hanging over us. It's going to fall on us. We're just waiting for the school to call us in, for us to get gated, for us to get suspended, to get in trouble. Oh, my God, what's going to happen? So, of course, seeing as we've sworn everyone to secrecy, everybody knows. I remember being in maths, and there were, you know, kids going, wait, did that really happen? And I'm like, yeah. Just shut up. But yes, it happened. Go through the full next day, nothing. Woo! Got away with it. Except the next morning. So the next morning, we have this thing every morning where, you know, you have a head count, and the housemaster will give you a briefing of whatever's going on in the day or something like that. And he goes, all right, guys, first 2 lessons are cancelled. There is going to be a presentation by the headmaster for the whole school. So it's time to head down there. And we're like, well, you know, surely not. Surely no. Okay, fine. So we go into speech hall, which is kind of like the big hall. And it's the whole school. The entire school is in there. And then the headmaster comes up on stage. And I remember he gets to his lectern and gets to his mic. And he's like, all right, guys, today we're going to talk about the dangers of the village at night. As soon as he says that, Paul and I sit forward in our chairs, and we're like, oh, shit. And we're like looking at each other. And of course, all of the other really helpful guys in my year are all just looking at us. I'm like, guys, thank you very much. Yes, thank you. So then we had to sit through this sort of 30, 40-minute presentation, and we're just waiting to be called up on stage, tarred and feathered, eggs thrown at us, gated, suspended, whatever's going to happen. And what did happen was nothing. Nothing was ever said, ever. The school just swept it under the rug because they didn't want to have this conversation with our parents. We didn't want to have this conversation with our parents. And so it was like mutually assured destruction of, we're not saying shit, but you're not saying shit. I did not tell my parents that story for about 12 years. I think I was mid-20s when I finally told them that story. And I will say that they were a bit pissed. And I was like, Mom, Dad, chill. Way worse than that happened at school, which is true. But that is my story. That is the time that I accidentally got involved in a robbery when I should have been at school and had to identify criminals at 2 o'clock in the morning and somehow got away with it. So I'm intrigued. Did any of you the stars of your own story from school? What was the legendary story that happened at your school? Drop them in the comments. Let's enjoy the Schadenfreude. Let's enjoy just the fact that it wasn't us, and let's just enjoy the great stories. But that's mine. I tell you what, though, I miss Abdul's kebab van every day.